Hello and welcome to another edition of allhorsetalk.com. I'm Bunny Hendricks, your hostess, also known as Alita in some circles. Today's subject is horse blanketing 101. We're going to see if we can cover all this in our little 10 minutes allotted. We're going to talk about types of blankets and what makes them different, when to blanket your horse, and what is a blanket size. So let's start with the two types of blankets. We're here on my cross tie this fine day with several blankets fanned out for you to see. First of all, we have two main types. Let's see, we have sheets versus blankets. At the top here I have two different types of sheets. This one is a cotton kind of a mesh knit, not really a mesh, but it's maybe a pebble knit sheet that's a lightweight material. Here's a different sheet made of nylon. The top of this is very heavy and it's water resistant. And we'll talk about why they're different in just a few moments. Here's a blanket. Now, sheets are made for light duty wear when it's not terribly cold, just a little cool. And here's a blanket. This blanket is, you can see that the blankets are a little thicker. They have a filling in them which makes them thicker, holds air, which helps keep the horse warmer in colder temperatures. This blanket just has a nylon cover. This blanket has a heavier nylon type material that's tighter woven and is also a bit on the waterproof side. This one is not insulated except around where the body is. You can see it's got a fluffier filling where the body of the horse is. This part is not filled. This part lower is not filled. Now, when do you need a sheet? You need a sheet when it's cool. You need a blanket when it's cold. Now, we have two different types. We have stable sheets and stable blankets, and then we have turnout sheets and turnout blankets. The two specimens on this side here, examples on this side, are both stable. The covering is not as a durable fabric as the turnout blanket. These are made primarily for use in the stable, hence the name stable bandage. So if your horse is not going to be rolling around outside or galloping around in it or creating heavy wear on the blanket, then that's what you need to use. On this side, we have our turnout sheet and our turnout blanket, and they're the ones with the tougher coating, the tougher nylon, the tighter woven nylon, and these usually are either waterproofed or water resistant. Now, there is a difference. Waterproof usually is an extremely tight woven cover, usually perhaps a heavy canvas, which is often waxed, covered in a wax coating, and those are waterproof. The water rolls right off of those. These two samples are water resistant, which means with a lot of heavy rain, they will get wet. But with the general amount of rain that is in the course of a time where I would have the horses out, they will be kept dry enough as it is. So those are the differences between stable sheets and blankets and turnout sheets and blankets. Now, we want to know, when do we need to blanket? When do we blanket? Okay, when to blanket? If it is cool enough where to be warm, you need a jacket. Your horse needs a jacket too. Because horses are, after all, warm-blooded mammals, just like we are, and they need to be kept warm. Their body temperatures need to be kept at a certain rate in order for them to maintain their health, etc. Now, important factors to think about are shelter, the availability of shelter, what kind of shelter your animals have. Okay, if they're in a stable that is very dry and wind resistant and they're kept very warm, they're not going to need as much protection against the cold as a horse that is out in the pasture and maybe doesn't have any shelter at all. It has no natural hills to break the wind or no trees to get underneath to help shelter him from the wet, from the dampness. Okay, humidity in the air. How humid? Is it a cold, wintry, gray day where there's a lot of humidity and it feels colder than it actually is? Is it actually raining or snowing, if especially a wet snow? Is it actually precipitating? That will mean that the horse will need greater protection against the elements. Wind is also a factor. If it's windy and the wind is whipping up, it's going to feel colder than it is. Conversely, if it's a sunny day and it's very calm, there's very little, if any, wind, the temperature is probably going to feel either at the rate that it is, at the level that it is, or it might even feel a little bit warmer. Now, when you choose to blanket your horses depends on those factors, and it also depends on what your horses are used to. If you live in a colder climate, your horses are more acclimated to colder weather. I live in a very warm climate, and we all get chilly once the thermometer hits below 55 or below 60, some of us. So we need to make adjustment for that. So here where I live, my gauge is if the low temperature for the day, for the night, is somewhere in the 53 to 43 degree mark, I'm going to put a sheet on the horses. And my horses are stabled at night. I have a Florida barn. It's a very open barn, very airy, lots of ventilation. The wind blows through. So it doesn't provide a lot of protection if there's a cold, bitter wind. But we don't have those, but maybe 2 or 3 times a year. So I don't need that tight barn. Okay, if we have temperatures that will be in the low of anywhere from 42 to 32, that's to the freezing mark, I definitely put the blanket with the filling in to provide extra warmth. If we are below freezing, 31 or lower, the horse needs a heavy blanket with more filling than what you've seen here, or 2 layers. And since I live in a very warm climate, my option is 2 layers, so that I don't have to purchase 3 blankets per horse, that I'm okay with just the 2. Now, the next thing that we're going to discover is, what is a blanket size? When you purchase a blanket for a horse, they come in sizes, just like when you purchase clothing for yourself, it comes in sizes. How is that measured? Well, that is measured from the end of the blanket that wraps around the horse's rump all the way up to the front of the blanket, which wraps around the horse's chest. And we can see that this blanket is an 81-inch blanket. That's a large blanket for a large horse. We will, in another video in our series, look at how do you measure, this will be in Blanketing 102, how do you measure your horse to fit a blanket? And how do you, when you're looking at the blanket on the horse, does it fit, yes or no? So that's what will be coming in Horse Blanketing 102. Well, until then, this is Alita Bunny Hendricks at allhorsetalk.com saying thank you for viewing, and until next time, bye-bye.